Welcome one, welcome all. It is Tuesday, March 14th, 3/14. That is Pi Day. We are appropriately here on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel for a BTB Roundtable. You can watch us live on the aforementioned Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. You can always catch the rewatch at your own convenience. You can also listen to this show on the Blog and the Boys podcast network. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating, write a review. We have an enormous amount of activity to get to, so we're going to fly through our introductions. My name is RJ Ochoa, going in clockwise order if you are here on the YouTube side of things, kind of like a pie, I suppose. Brandon Loree, the only Brandon here tonight. You get to be Brandon for a change. What is your favorite type of pie, Brandon Loree?
Apple pie, and we'll just leave it at that because I know it's been hashed out many times. But yeah, apple pie all the way.
Right. Also, American Pie, where apple pie was made very famous. Chris Halling, welcome aboard. You are wearing a Leighton Vander jersey, appropriately so. Once again, we have a lot of news to get to. Were you planning on wearing that before the news dropped earlier today?
I wasn't, but it got me so excited. I just had to wear it.
Okay. That's well done. Tony Catalina, you are wearing a Boston Red Sox cap. One of the teams expected to be quite bad this season in Major League Baseball. So it's bold of you to support them. Maybe there's just like a passing of the guard for you, or passing two ships in the night. Cowboys getting good again, Red Sox fading into oblivion.
Yeah, I just have a couple of teams that disappoint me, so I'm used to it.
Would you trade that if you could guarantee a Cowboys Super Bowl? Would you take 150 losses for the Red Sox?
For the rest of my life, yeah.
Wow. Some Red Sox fan Tony Catalina is. Danny Phantom, I know I've asked this before. I believe you are a San Francisco Giants fan. So good times for you, I suppose. Almost Carlos Correa, whatever. How are you doing, Danny, here on this wonderful Tuesday evening?
I'm fantastic. This is I love this part of free agency, and now it's even better. So I'm in a good mood.
David Howman, I'm not going to tell everybody where you live because I don't want to dox you or anything like that. But it looks like you're hanging out in the fine offices of Dunder Mifflin, at least based on your virtual background. Or is that a coincidence? It's actually so well done, the virtual background, that I can't tell if it's real or fake.
Yeah, this is I just work at Dunder Mifflin, so I'm up here in Scranton. Came into the office for the day.
It's funny that you say that because the moment you started to move, the moment the virtual background kind of started to become obvious. So
you can see Stanley in the background.
That's true.
He's napping. Don't be too loud.
You can. If it were Pretzel Day, he would enjoy it a lot more. LP Cruz, welcome aboard. Happy to have you along. You are a two-time defending Roundtable champion. You're going for a hat trick, 3 in a row. Do you think you can pull it off? You are muted, so not a great start. Just to be,
-1, but for sure. For sure.
All right, good. Vance Williams has offered 10 points to everybody. He says it's a celebration, people. Vance, we appreciate the love. I'm not going to write that down because if you're giving them to everybody, then I don't have to write them down. I don't have to separate it. So we'll just assume everybody's starting off with 10. Jess Marie says it's a party. I am here in spirit. I believe this is Jess Navarez, based on her words, but it doesn't say Jess Navarez, so excuse me, it could have been any other Jess. So Jess, thanks for hanging out with us here. Everybody will hear Jess recapping all of today's news on tomorrow's episode of Dallas Cowboys Daily on the podcast feed. Rick Ercolani says happy Pi Day. Vance Williams offers up a super chat and says, since Jess isn't here, she is Jess Marie, as we just went over. I got to say it in honor of her. Gilly, thank you for the super chat, Vance. All right. Mob Rules says Tony was right in saying that Jerry would make off-season moves. Now, Tony, you've said a lot of things, so it's kind of easy to be right when you're saying everything. But that being said, you did say that, like a lot of people, and it happened. We have a lot to get to. We're not going to go quite in chronological order. The headlining event of today, the Dallas Cowboys sending a 5th-round compensatory pick number 176 overall. That was actually the lower of their 2 5th-round compensatory picks to the Indianapolis Colts in exchange for Stephon Gilmore. Tony Catalina, get us started. How do you feel? Why do you feel that way? And go for it.
I'm excited. This is the move that, like you said, I say a lot of things, but I think I've been pretty clear in the sense that I wanted them to be a little more aggressive. It didn't have to be sell the farm and be over the top, but this is the type of thing that I think that we've been clamoring for them to do for a while. A 5th-round pick, you feel good about the compensation you give up, but it's a player that can step in, instantly give you an upgrade over Anthony Brown. Now you got a situation where you got a savvy veteran who is 32, going to be 33 when the season starts, but we only need him to be good this year. I don't think anybody's thinking about 2024 right now. Let's just get Stefan Gilmore to be a high-level quality cornerback post or next to Trayvon Diggs for 2023. And I mean, if you're sitting here in Cowboys Nation, you got to be juiced up about it because this is exactly what we've been asking them to do.
David Howman, you wrote, I don't think it's out quite yet. It might have just gone out, about how Stefon Gilmore will impact and sort of be worked into the Dallas Cowboys defense. Does this scream Dan Quinn to you? Does this scream Cowboys are being aggressive? The meme of playing a video game and kind of sitting up, finally starting to take it seriously. Where's your head at?
I mean, it's really Dan Quinn to me, and I think Stephon Gilmore is really a perfect fit for what Dan Quinn likes to do. He likes to use a lot of press man coverage. They've been running man coverage at one of the highest rates in the NFL his last couple of years here, and that's what Stephon Gilmore just thrives in. He's great at going out there, lining up. In the past, he's lined up against the other team's top receiver. Now playing with Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland, he might not necessarily have to do that, but he's very good playing in that press man. He's very good playing in exactly the kind of system that Dan Quinn does. So I think it's just a really great fit. It gives Dan Quinn exactly what he needs. And most importantly, I think, is the fact that he's kind of a one-year rental at this point. So you're not necessarily, in a situation where you can't draft a corner and try to develop them. It's not like you can't still work on finding a long-term answer there. But he fills this hole right now for the short term for 2023, and that's exactly what you were looking for.
All right, so as I fight a coughing spell, not going to give points to myself, but pretty heroic effort on my part. We field tested a new feature here on our platform that we use called StreamYard, where all these guys can offer up a visual answer. So this actually really impacts the podcast feed. We love you, podcast listeners, but nevertheless, we forge on the prompt, and all of you should remember how to do this since we talked about it like 10 minutes ago. Describe the Stefon Gilmore trade in one word. Your answers on screen, please. Also, obviously, anybody who's with us here live, we would love to hear it. One word. I'm very anxious to hear what you guys have to say. Let's see. Before we get there, I did want to throw up this comment from Brian. Everybody follow Brian on TikTok at Top Cowboys. Says the moves they made at the end of last season sure did make it seem like the Cowboys realized there was a need. We have kind of seen them ever since, really, I would argue, the Odell interest. The Cowboys start to sit up, take things a little bit more seriously. The Odell interest sort of signified that. The T.Y. Hilton move, obviously the continued interest in Odell Beckham Jr., but this Stefon Gilmore trade is along those lines. All right, let's get everybody's one-word answers here. Brandon, you have gone with 2019. The Cowboys lost to Stefon Gilmore's New England Patriots in 2019 in that monsoon. Why is 2019 your answer?
It's very reminiscent of the Robert Quinn trade that they made in 2019. It's a guy who's a veteran presence along the defensive line. Of course, Stefon Gilmore being a cornerback, it addresses a need with veteran leadership for, high reward, low cost. And at that time, the Cowboys didn't really have a great roster. And so they're making that trade, and it's almost like it really wasn't for anything. This time around, they have a great roster, and they're adding Stefon Gilmore to an even better team, where now if you look at the entire defense, it's like he's just a piece of the pie. And when you look at that pie, it is freshly baked. This has been baking for the past 2 seasons when Dan Quinn got here. So now you're going into year 3, where now Stefon Gilmore is just icing on that pie, or ice cream and on the apple pie.
I like that answer. You mentioned the Robert Quinn trade. Michael Bennett, also a similar sort of deal that the Cowboys executed in the middle of that 2019 season. That didn't pan out the same way. The Cowboys still continue to reap off of the Robert Quinn trade by way of compensatory picks, which is actually not that pick, but what set this all up to begin with. So great answer from you, Brandon. Chris, you said splash. And by the way, everybody, Brandon followed instructions correctly by removing his answer when he was done. So everybody make sure you follow suit. So Chris, you said splash, and Jess originally said Chris and I are on the same page with our word, but then she changed and said, I'm going to change my word to bejeweled. So your word is not bejeweled, Chris. You have gone with splash. Why?
It's just a big move. To me, it's a splash because the Cowboys, one of their weaknesses last year was that second cornerback. If we had a Stefon Gilmore as cornerback 2 last year, we easily could have been the NFC East champions, and the whole playoffs could have gone completely different. And I just love it for so many reasons. His cap hit really isn't that crazy, isn't it? Around like 8 million, 9 million for this upcoming season. They only gave up a compensatory 5th round pick. And I love it too. I know that his future in Dallas may not be very long, but it's good for our future in a sense that he's going to mentor Trayvon Diggs so well. Like all those small things that we really get on Trayvon about, those little errors that he makes in coverage. Like who's a better person to learn from than Stefon Gilmore, one of the best cornerbacks of the past decade. So it's just an awesome move for the Cowboys. it shores up a hole, and really it makes cornerback not as pressing of a need in the draft. So you could really look at other options earlier and maybe go best player available at wide receiver, or even, be a little flashy and maybe go tight end or running back if you really want to spice it up a little bit. So I love it for so many reasons, and I'm just so excited it happened.
I love your point about, I guess, like, call it the leadership. I loved when the Cowboys, for example, signed Gerald McCoy in Mike McCarthy's first offseason. It kind of felt like he could be, at the time, I likened it to what Charles Woodson was for Mike McCarthy's Green Bay Packers. And Stephon Gilmore, he's won a Defensive Player of the Year. He's won a Super Bowl. To your point, Chris, he has that professionalism, that level of experience. And the clip of the Cowboys beating the Colts and the aftermath and the jersey swap was going around everywhere. It's very, very clear the Cowboys players really look up to Stephon Gilmore. So it is kind of cool to have this living legend be a voice for them in the locker room. Let's go to you, LP. You went with foresight. The only one who went with a word that started with the letter F. Why foresight?
I never tuned in last week, huh? But no, really, I think that, for all you guys so far have said, it's just the compensation, the player, the experience. It serves as a good benefit to not just Diggs, but also Micah Parsons. How often do you have a DPOY walk into your building to mentor these young guys? So someone who's been there before, who's won titles in the NFL, everything that he brings, but also at the same time, you have the protection of knowing that, hey, it's just a 1-year rental. I'm not locked into this. I'm still flexible enough to add a player in the draft at the same spot. It's the foresight of this year and beyond it, albeit not in the way people would expect it conventionally, but still, you protect yourself in this one upcoming season. You can also get somebody in the draft. And again, just heaps and heaps of experience, skins on the wall, and a proven talent. So I'm with them, man. They looked ahead. Good call. Great call.
In case anybody jumped in late, we are describing the Cowboys trading for Stephon Gilmore in one word. We have heard 2019 from Brandon Loree. Not really a word, by the way, Brandon. It's a little bit of a cheat on your end.
Yeah.
Chris Halling, you went with splash. LP Cruz, you went with foresight. Before we get to what our other roundtablers said, I did want to go through some of the comments here. Jess, backed off, but she did say splash. Watsamata says solid. I believe blue 365. I think encapsulates the fan base as finally. Burnt 1686 says shocked. Craig Smith says polish. I kind of like that. Rick says LFG, kind of an acronym, not really words. Let's see. Brian also agreed with that. Charles, I kind of like this, just says next. That's super business mode, like just next up. Rick says stacked. Mob Rules says knowledge. And Ricky says Wagner. I don't know if that counts. Ethan says now. So, hey, it is what it is. Okay, Danny Phantom. Whoops, let's get this off the screen. You went with savvy. Is that short for Savannah, or are you actually going for savvy?
No, it means what it is. I think that with a move like this, obviously you talked about what the Cowboys are giving up, which is nothing really in draft capital. And Brandon is absolutely right as far. It totally looks exactly like Robert Quinn. I mean, almost the money matches up too. But to me, I think with a player like that is you get a person has the veteran leadership. He's fundamentally sound. He'll jam you at the line of scrimmage. He's just one of those players that he knows where his first step should go. And he just kind of, he has great instincts, and he'll run the routes for the receivers. He brings that type of play to where you now have a Cowboys cornerback group that, you don't have to shade two guys over to one side, because you got one guy who's going to take away a lengthy player, which is what Gilmore will do. And then, so the Cowboys actually, they can do more things defensively. And, I don't know what this says about the draft class necessarily, because a lot of times the Cowboys, the moves they'll make, they'll see the landscape and they'll react accordingly. But, this is a reliable starter that the Cowboys got on the outside. And I just think it's a very smart. I don't think it's splashy. I think it's very Jonesy. I mean, this is what they do. I mean, the risk is, 1 year, you're not risking a lot of money. The draft capital is not much. So it's just a very, Cowboys front office thing to do, but it's a big name. So now fans are happy too. So I think it's one of those that satisfies a lot of people. So I really like the move.
David Howman, you went with baller. Interesting. So I don't know, are you describing the Cowboys? Are you describing the disposition? Are you describing Gilmore specifically? Like, where does that take us?
I think the whole move, Gilmore himself, he is a baller. He has great ball skills. And I just think the move to not only go out and get him, but also to trade for him and only give up a 5th round pick and a compensatory pick at that is, it's highway robbery. It's just a baller move. And, specifically with Gilmore, when we're talking about, some of the other corners that might have potentially been available, or just for comparison, I have the stats pulled up here. He had a better completion rate, a better yards per target, and yards per reception than Darius Slay, Jair Alexander, and of course Jalen Ramsey, who a few days ago everyone was so upset that the Cowboys didn't trade for Jalen Ramsey, and now they get someone who last year was actually better in several key categories, is a whole lot cheaper, and actually has a Defensive Player of the Year award under his belt, which, to Brandon's point, 2019, that was also the year he won that award. So it's a pretty baller move bringing him in.
Well said. Okay, great job by you, Howman. Tony, I went with you last, not for any reason other than you were the only person who did not capitalize the first word or first letter of your word. So it felt like you believed in it the least. But you went with the word promising, and why is that?
Well, I mean, I actually believe in it wholeheartedly, to be honest with you. These are the type of moves that we talk about it. I think Danny would agree. Like they address needs, and then they go ahead and they give themselves a chance to draft the best player available in these drafts. So they plug holes and they kind of fix that on the fly. The difference is this has a different feel to it, a different kind of upper echelon to it. So it's kind of like an elevated way of addressing needs. This is them being smart with the way they took, using a 5th round pick and getting a starter for that, plug and play, somebody that upgrades the position and beats out Anthony Brown in a spot where you probably don't need to bring him back. It doesn't really add any value to this point. With that being said, the whole move is promising because it shows they're not really deviating or going too far off of their original plan or how they stick to the script, so to speak, but they understand the value of getting little, better players or getting some higher quality player in there. And, Stephon Gilmore for 1 year rental, you could do a lot worse than that. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty promising for Cowboys Nation.
I really like that, Tony. I think it's promising in an overall sense. That's a really wide word because it encapsulates, I think, what we all wanted to see. Like we talked about this, do something, show a pulse, give us some sign of life, give us some indication that you're taking this seriously. This is that. Danny, I agree with you. This could be a kind of, LP's word, a bit of foresight, saying, you know what, we don't necessarily foresee ourselves walking away with some corners that we like in the draft. For what it's worth, they walked away with some corners they liked in the draft 2 years ago. They missed. But I think that's why this is promising. Instead of saying, you know what, Kelvin Joseph, you got to step up in year 3, Kelvin. We're going to depend on you. We're going to go all in. We're going to trust that you're going to be the guy. No, hell no. Hedge your bet. Make sure you have somebody to be prepared. Maybe Anthony Brown still comes back, right? We're all ruling him out. We never know. The Cowboys are saying, we like this defense. We like this secondary, but we're adding. So I agree with you, Tony. Promising is the right word. In fact, the best word of the round goes to Tony Catalina. Tony, how are you feeling? Even though you went last, you came in and stole the show.
It feels good. You saved the best for last there, so I appreciate it.
Well, now you're getting a little cocky. I'm not, really liking that all too much. Donovan Wilson is returning to the Cowboys. Tony, anyway, we're moving on. Donovan Wilson is returning to the Cowboys. It is a 3-year, $24 million deal. You can kind of look at it as a 2-year deal. All the guaranteed money's in the first 2 years. A lot of us thought this was unlikely because of the fact that Jaron Kearse and Malik Hooker are both under contract. The Cowboys said, don't think that we are the most predictable people in the business. We'll start with you, LP. How did you feel seeing Donovan Wilson's deal get done? This was what kickstarted, by the way, the party on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I was surprised. A lot of people see him as a vital piece, a indispensable figure in Dan Quinn's defense. So to get him back in any capacity, I thought was a surprise. I thought his market would be a lot more than what he got. So getting him back for 3 years, $24 million, and it's, I think, $13 million guaranteed at the most. So for that, yeah, I think it was a great deal on their part. Great deal. RJ, hold on a second. But yeah, other than that, man, great deal.
Great deal indeed. Danny Phantom, you asked us privately if I wanted you to do a word. Would you like to do that? What game would you like to play for Donovan Wilson, Danny? I'll let you pick the game.
Threw me off a little bit, Danny.
I'm sorry for confusing you, LP.
All good.
I was just trying to get clarification from our host there, but
that's okay. But see, I don't want to host or do anything elaborate. That's what I'm saying, Danny. We did one word to describe the Stefon Gilmore trade. What would you like to do for Donovan Wilson?
No, just continue.
What? I mean, we could do the one word thing. Let's see. Brandon, what should everybody offer as far as thoughts on Donovan Wilson? You want to do one word again? How do you feel?
No, I think let's go around and just get a little bit of a highlight of a take of what people feel. I'll add to it that the fact that I didn't really have as much doubt that he would be back. And I say that because we were hearing reports with Stephen Jones even talking about at the Senior Bowl that he wanted to keep these guys together. He said it was a priority to keep Wilson, Curse, and Hooker together. He saw what that meant to the defense last year. We know Dan Quinn loves Donovan Wilson, and I think that maybe he was offered a little bit more money. We don't know, but I do think having Dan Quinn back again as sort of this pseudo free agent signing, like nobody expected him to return, but the fact that he returned, I think that you get a guy like Donovan Wilson to think twice about saying, man, if I go somewhere else, I don't have Dan Quinn. I don't have this sort of system. I don't have my guys with me. There was a clip that came out where J.R. Curse was talking about bowling with the safety group. Like, these guys are very close with each other. So I think that keeping that core together is something that they prioritize very early on. We were hearing it from multiple reporters. So I didn't really have the doubts about it. I do think that he's coming back on a bargain. I'm very happy with the price. I think it's just a win-win all the way around.
So first of all, Protect the Sun 1 has come in and said that their favorite player is Brad Johnson. That is a bit of a throwback as far as Dallas Cowboys history is concerned. I don't know how we wound up in this place, but nevertheless, here we are. So here's our game for Donovan Wilson. Yes or no? So you only have two options. Donovan Wilson was the most important free agent that the Dallas Cowboys had to keep. Now, he is one of two that they retained on Tuesday specifically. It's worth mentioning that the Cowboys had, prior to Tuesday, placed the franchise tag on Tony Pollard. They have placed the second-round tender on Terrence Steele, so that is not officially official, but it would be pretty impossible for Terrence Steele to leave this team at this point in time. So this was kind of all about Donovan Wilson or Leighton Vander Esch. Again, the fun part of this question is that they are both back, so we're just kind of, what is it? Half in one hand, a dozen in the other. What's the expression? 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Whatever. We're doing that with these two dudes. So that being said, yes or no, Donovan Wilson was the most important free agent the Dallas Cowboys had to keep. Answers are in. LP, Danny, and Chris did not get answers. That's okay. Oh, here we go. Chris got his answer up on the board. LP's answer is in. And we are almost, are we going to be 50-50? We have a chance to be 50-50 split. Brandon says yes. Tony says yeah. Oh, no, we are. No, sorry. I kind of like this feature, but this feature is throwing me off a little bit. Brandon and Howman said yes. Donovan Wilson was the most important free agent that the Cowboys had to retain with regards to him and Leighton Vander Esch. LP, Danny, Chris, Tony all said no. I presume that you are on the Leighton side of this argument, so we'll get to that in a moment. Howman, why was Donovan Wilson priority number one?
Well, first, I think not only did Brandon and I both say yes, we both did it in all caps. So I think that counts for more.
That's true.
But for me, Donovan Wilson was more important, one, because of just positional value. If it's between Donovan Wilson and Leighton Vander Esch, we know that, linebackers, it's easier to find productive linebackers later on in the draft. It's a little harder, especially these days, to find really talented safeties like Donovan Wilson later on in the draft. That's why he's sort of an exception to the rule. But also, he just does so much for this defense. He's an enforcer. He plays in so many different ways. He lines up all over the field. He can affect, as a pass rusher, blitzing off the edge. He can come down in the box and be a run stopper. He's played a lot as a deep safety and been really, really good in coverage too. So I just think he affects your defense at every single level. And nothing against Leighton Vander Esch. I've learned my lesson from that. I'm not going to say a bad word about him. But, if you're talking about just, position-wise, at linebacker, you feel really good about Damone Clark. Jabril Cox has some really good promise as well. And, there's plenty of other free agents that you could potentially target out there as well, like Bobby Wagner or Nicholas Morrow, who was mentioned earlier on Tuesday as well. But I think when you really just are nitpicking, Donovan Wilson stands out.
For what it's worth, Kevin said that you, Howman, just said yes because you don't want to eat more crow. We all remember that you left Leighton Vander Esch off of your 53-man roster ahead of this past season. So that is going to serve to haunt you really for all of time. Now, I wanted to get to one point here. It is Matthew. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Matthew Roffin. I hope I'm correct here. Says the Wilson deal is kind of a double win because it allows Mukuamu to play cornerback as he did in the playoffs. We obviously saw Mukuamu play in the slot a lot. A lot of people started talking about on Tuesday afternoon after this deal was finalized that maybe the Cowboys would play Izzy Moore at corner because now they have three safeties. Marquise Bell is still in the mix if the Cowboys want to have him be their fourth option. We all acknowledge that Israel is very talented. For what it's worth, Israel Mukuamu did retweet a tweet himself, kind of pushing that agenda. Danny Phantom, you could argue the Cowboys picked up two corners today and trading for Stefon Gilmore and the ripple effect of the Donovan Wilson deal, sending Israel Mukuamu there. So now the Cowboys cornerback depth is all the more strong and strengthened. Kelvin Joseph, Nashon Wright, doesn't matter. The Cowboys now have Stephon Gilmore and Israel Mukuamu.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key piece in that too is that we don't have to stretch Deron Bland to the outside, which we know he's okay, but he's really good in the slot. It's almost kind of like an Anthony Brown thing, so he's really good in the slot, but not so much on the outside. But we don't have to deal with that now because we have our outside corner. So now you look at a player like Mukuamu, who's basically our reserve slot corner. You saw how well he did in the wild card game, and kind of makes you think like, well, what are they going to do with Jordan Lewis in his salary? So I don't even think there's a place for Lewis on the team now with the players that they have. So I mean, overall, just the secondary is just really strong. I didn't answer Dono because I just I think Jaron Kearse gives us better. He's still that line of scrimmage safety, and he can also play better in coverage too. So to me, I love having Dono on the team, but I don't think he's as I would feel worse not having Leighton on it going into with our linebacker depth than I would with Wilson, and that's why I answer that way. But I think one of the things that makes me the most happiest about this is the Cowboys. They're again re-upping in their guys. I know everyone hates that expression, but these are quality players that the Cowboys that have helped this team win, and bringing them back and keeping them. I mean, no one should ever complain about re-signing a good football player, and that's what these guys are. So I like them both. Very happy for the Cowboys defense. Now it just kind of sets the table for like what it could be if some things start to just get a little bit better on the other side of the ball.
Thinking as you were speaking, Danny, obviously listening, but both Jaron Kearse and Malik Hooker are entering the final years of their contracts with the Cowboys. And so the also solid part of Donovan Wilson returning is that next year the Cowboys aren't SOL at the safety position, right? Like, I don't think any of us envision the Cowboys bringing both Kearse and Hooker back. Maybe they do bring one back, but it's possible they let both walk. So now the Cowboys won't have this total sort of revamp makeover on the back end of their secondary in 2024. But again, that's a problem way further in the future. So Chris Halling, Tony Catalina, you both answered no as far as Donovan Wilson being the most important one. Howman shouted out himself and Brandon for going all caps. Chris, you went no with an exclamation point in all caps, and Tony went no in complete non-caps. So you guys feel this at different levels of emotion, I presume. Chris, why do you feel so strongly, I guess, that Donovan Wilson was not the most important player the Cowboys had to bring back?
Well, I think it has to do with the people on the roster around them as well. Like, to your point, like I feel more comfortable if we had lost Wilson than Leighton Vander Esch, just because we do have Hooker and Kearse. But also, if we lost Leighton Vander Esch, you're losing, like, I feel like the brains of the defense, that leadership that keeps everyone together and keeps everyone in line. And I don't really love our linebacker position if we lose Leighton Vander Esch. I mean, who's going to play that middle linebacker spot if we lose him? And like, honestly, I just think that Leighton Vander Esch is so crucial. I love having Donovan Wilson back. I think it's awesome that he did come back, and he came back for a lot cheaper than I thought we would have had to bring him back for. So I'm very ecstatic that he's coming back. But I think Leighton, and bringing back Leighton too on that deal, was insane to me. I thought he also got a bargain deal as well. So yeah, I think that Leighton's more valuable to this defense and more indisposable than Donovan Wilson. But I'm so happy and thankful to the front office that we were able to bring both back. That's just the best of both worlds.
Tony, you seem to be a bit more shy in this opinion, that you don't believe Donovan Wilson was that important. Is it just you believe that much in Leighton Vander Esch? Do you echo Chris's thoughts completely?
I think, for me, it's like you said, it's a soft no, because I see the value in Donovan Wilson, and I wanted him back. So I'm glad that he is back. But at the same time, I understand. I looked at the roster construction, right? You made a good point about thinking about 2024. Like, the safety room could look a lot different. So that gives me a little bit of pause when I say no, and having him in the fold for the 3 years does help. But if you look at the linebacker room, like Chris mentioned, it's a little more leaky, a little more suspect. I feel good about the Marquise Bell, the Izzy Mukuamu, and his position flex that he has, and the guys that are already in there with Kearse and Hooker. So I was okay with losing Donovan Wilson because of how the team is constructed, not because of any way or any value he brings to this team. But having him in the fold is a quality move. You got to applaud the signing, and I'm glad they did it.
LP, I think an argument could be made that Donovan Wilson would not be as valuable to the Cowboys defense if Dan Quinn weren't its coordinator. Now, we don't have to live in that reality, but still, maybe that affects your value. Like if you're trying to be a little bit more, wide with your assessment of it. But you answered no. You have now put it back. Is that an apostrophe at the end? I can't tell. But so you're adding a whole different character to the answer. Why is it no with some sort of contractual, I guess like atmosphere to it?
It was supposed to be an accent mark, the Spanish no. But I mean, I think you were kind of thinking what I was thinking as well, and it's based on Dan Quinn. I've seen Dan Quinn make a Donovan Wilson because he made one with J-Ron Kerr. So in that similar style, similar fashion, I mean, I'm believing in Marquise Bell. I believe also that we saw a pretty good production from Hooker playing down the box when he did. So I think you can find another guy to play that spot. So if you let him go, you have someone else coming back. But I do think both of them are really good options to have. And I think, like Chris has said, I'm worried about who's that Mike linebacker. If you lose LVE, who's your Mike linebacker? Who can actually play that spot? We're not really sure about Jabril Cox. We really don't know if Damone Clark is really ready to have that spot right now. So I think that made LVE even more indispensable, as Chris had already said. Without LVE, you had a big question mark to handle. And I didn't want to be pigeonholed in taking a linebacker very high in the draft either. So I mean, I'm going to applaud the signing either way, but I think the one guy you could afford to lose, if you had to lose one of them, was Donovan Wilson based on Quinn, the numbers, and again, the valuation of LVE for what we have right now.
Brandon, Donovan Wilson is in some Leighton Vander Esch is in some uncharted territory with the Cowboys in that he now has a third contract with the team. Had his rookie deal, obviously, the 1-year contract a year ago where he bet on himself. Now a third time that he is signed on the proverbial dotted line. So Donovan Wilson only, coming in for a second contract. But I think for some people, Brandon, it does feel like a little bit more return on investment. Leighton was a first-round pick who didn't have his fifth-year option picked up that now is on his third deal with the team, whereas Donovan Wilson's cashed in for the first time as a sixth-round pick. Is that part of your evaluation in this moment?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, honestly, if you took whatever Tony said, and if we were able to play Mad Libs and just take out, Leighton Vander Esch and put Donovan Wilson in, to me, we would be speaking the same language here. And I think that when I look at Donovan Wilson and who they had as a contingency plan, right? Like we were hearing a few names, like a Bobby Wagner, if they lost that on LVE, some would consider possibly an upgrade. And again, I'm happy LVE is back, but I'm just looking long-term if that was a reality we were in. For Donovan Wilson, if he left, we were hearing Taylor Rapp as a name. And I know, yes, he is a solid safety, but I wasn't as positive with him coming in and replacing a Donovan Wilson. Again, I trust Dan Quinn, but I'm not so sure about the player. I also look a little bit further in the draft. The safety part of the draft this season, it doesn't look like it's that great. It doesn't stretch as long as what you would have. Maybe if you draft somebody in the third round as a linebacker, you can kind of fill that void a little bit. And then again, you see somebody like a Damone Clark kind of step in. I just had more trust that the Cowboys would fill that void in free agency because there were still a lot of good linebackers available. And now they started, chipping away at the deals before Leighton Vander Esch was signed. And I think that's sort of why this got done pretty quickly. But I just had more confidence in the backup of if they lost LVE as opposed to Wilson.
We're going to talk about Leighton in a moment, but Danny, I want to bring this up to you. I just saw this story come out from Todd Archer. He just tweeted it out this moment that we're live. And the tweet reads, Cowboys going all in on defense with Wilson, Vander Esch, and Gilmore. Would you categorize this as all in? I mean, today was a defensive heavy day, right? I mean, today the Cowboys added 3 notable playmakers. I mean, do you feel like this is an all in effort? I mean, that term gets thrown out a lot, but would you say the Cowboys are all in defensively?
I mean, I guess if in the sense of how the Cowboys operate, it is. I mean, it's if you look at it, it's not really because, I mean, they're playing for 2023. It's not like they're at risk for in the future. I think that to me, it's very Cowboys-ish. It's nothing that's really out of the ordinary. I just think that they have a good understanding of the talent that they have, and they have an understanding of the holes that they have, and they're looking for players that are going to help them to this next level. And so in that regard, sure, they're definitely putting some chips in the pot. I mean, are they pot committed? I don't know. But I don't know if I'd say all in, but it's definitely for Cowboys. It's a move that, like I say, fans are going to be enamored by. But I just think it's just business for them because it's nothing that's going to really hurt them if things don't work out. So I like it. I think most people like it, but to me, I'm not seeing anything that's like a huge gamble on the Cowboys' part.
Just to play off your analogy a little bit, I agree with you. I don't think they're all in. I think that they have been content to just kind of let the blinds make their way through them, right? Like I think they have felt like we've got a big enough chip stack. We can, in fact, I'll just walk away, for a couple hours, just take my blinds when it comes around here. Like it does feel like they're playing the game at least a little bit now. I mean, maybe it's incremental growth or whatever, or incrementally different. But it does feel a little bit different than the passivity that we've seen at least the last 2 years. Now that worked out for them, obviously, as we've discussed many different times, but this does feel again like a little bit more like, hey, we don't really use the green chips that often. We're just going to put some of those in here and kind of see what happens. So in that sense, I'm happy about it. Now, Tony, I want to throw this one your way. Casey says, it seems like Quinn sticking around is making Dallas a straight up destination for defensive talent. Our players are returning with team-friendly deals. Free agents are going to be eager to join RD. Tony Catalina, in fact, I'll ask all of you if you can answer on your questionnaire method, whatever. Yes or no, do you believe that all three of these moves, so all three have to be a factor here, Donovan Wilson returning, Leighton, Vander returning, and the trading for Stefon Gilmore, do you think that all three of these moves happen if somebody else is the defensive coordinator of this team right now? If it's not Dan Quinn? So yes or no. No means you think if it's somebody else, all three do not happen. Tony Catalina, you say no. Chris said you said not a chance. Brandon, sorry, you said no. Danny, you said no. Waiting on Howman and LP. I'm interested to get to here. Tony, it's yours first. Your thoughts on Dan Quinn, his impact, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, without a doubt that this is a Dan Quinn, scenario here. These are guys that are comfortable in their system going into a third year with him. There's a real comfortability there. Dan Quinn understands what they have for their pros and their cons out there, and he understands how to use them in that way. So I definitely don't think that we would see this type of impact or these kind of signings if Dan Quinn wasn't here. But to answer this question on the other side of it is, I don't think this is like destinational. I think that the Cowboys are just bringing guys back that they see value in, and it may be a case of we always value our players more than probably the outside world does. I don't know exactly what Donovan Wilson would have got somewhere else, but we know exactly how to use him here, and Dan Quinn knows how to use him here. Same thing with Jaron Kearse. Jaron Kearse was a special teams kind of guy in Minnesota, didn't really have nearly the impact of the role that he does now in Dallas. So I don't know if it makes us destinational in Dallas, but Dan Quinn being here certainly helps because he has his type of guy and he knows how to use them.
LP, you said no, but with some ellipses. So you're all about like the full keyboard tonight.
Yeah, man. I mean, a wide array of skills we got over here, man. But no, I say no. But one thing I want to see is it true about getting external talent? Is Dan Quinn enough to lure external talent to come to Dallas? And I've noticed with players like Micah Parsons, he's been really vocal about adding pieces and trying to recruit players to show up. And I feel like if Dan Quinn is that impactful as a teacher, as a mentor, as a developer of talent, then let's see if guys actually take less money to sign here, because that's really the true measure of, do you really want to be here? Our own guys have, but can you acquire external guys to do the same thing? And that's where I want to see how impactful Dan Quinn is as a promoter, if you will. If he has that kind of skill, then let's talk about that at that point. But I'd like to see if they can get other guys to come out for these similar deals for cheap. So that's really what my question is. No, but we could do better. And maybe Quinn can do better if we went after more guys like this. Not just trades, but free agents. So we'll see.
David Howman, you're the only person who said yes. So you believe that in a Dan Quinn-less world today, March 14th, Pi Day, Donovan Wilson would be back, Leighton Vander should be back, and Stefon Gilmore would still be traded for. Defend yourself.
I do think that, and honestly, LP kind of touched on a little bit where I was going anyway, was, like let's start seeing some of these other free agents like actually coming here, signing for less money because they want to play for Dan Quinn. I mean, just a year ago, Randy Gregory left. Von Miller said that he was interested, and it didn't work out. He ended up taking more money to go to Buffalo than the Cowboys were willing to pony up. So it didn't happen last year. And, in the case of these three signings, I mean, two of them were the Cowboys keeping their own guys, which that's always been their practice. And they've done that before Dan Quinn. They're doing it now. They're going to do it long after Dan Quinn is gone. And then the other one was trading for Stefon Gilmore. It's not like he was a free agent. It's not like he didn't have a no trade clause. He didn't necessarily choose the Cowboys. And, we don't know to the degree that how much the Colts were talking with him about, do you want to go to this team? Do you want to go to that team? But it wasn't necessarily a situation where he said, I can go anywhere, I choose this team. He got traded here. So I'm just not really buying into the idea that necessarily all three of these happened because of Dan Quinn. Although certainly having him there and, having put up the film to show, hey, this is the best way to use Vander Esch, this is the best way to use Donovan Wilson. That does help, but I don't think that it's the driving factor.
Okay. That was interesting perspective. I don't think anybody's going to feel like talked off the ledge that they're on, but I think Howman at least made us all think. So if you could all clear your answers, please. We have a new question that was inspired actually by the audience. The whole genesis of the BTB Roundtable is that it is developed and driven by whoever's watching it. So shout out to all BTBers who listen to us, who watch us, who participate along, and obviously who participate by way of super chat. So Watsamata, thank you for the super chat. Says, hi everybody. After today's action this early, this whole offseason just smells different to me. The word smells is completely capitalized for the podcast audience. So Watsamata, you have inspired a segment here. Call it a segment, call it a moment, call it whatever you want. All of our panelists are going to have to answer this by way of their special answer key. What does this offseason smell like to you? You can go with anything you want. Remember, it's a family show, so no profanity here. We learned that lesson last week, LP. But what does it smell like? You could go roses. You could go chocolate. You could go potpourri. I don't know how to spell that word personally. You could go negative. You could go garbage. You could go spoiled fish. I'm going to buy everybody time until everybody kind of acknowledges that they have an answer in that they're locked in and ready for. We will also take comments from the crowd as well. I see you guys thinking, so I will continue to stall. That is something that I consider myself to be very good at. I'm waiting. Let's see. Ethan says this smells normal. So if one of you had normal, maybe you want to change it because somebody from the crowd took your answer. Alex says popcorn. Get yours ready. A delightful smell popcorn is. All right, we're going to reveal the answers in 3, 2, 1. What does this off season smell like to you? Wow. All right. Let's start with Chris. Pie being baked but needs a cherry.
It says on top.
Looks like went a little bit long. But so pie being baked but needs a cherry. So it smells like a pie in the oven, is what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially, we're off to a really good start, but there's still one more move that needs to be made in Dallas for it to really feel like a success. And that move is in Arizona right now. And that move would shore up this wide receiver room because right now our wide receiver room is looking thin. We still haven't addressed it. And whether you're on the Noah Brown hype train or not, our wide receiver room got thinner today when he went to the Houston Texans. So I think that we're still waiting on that big move. Like Stephon Gilmore was awesome, but I think the risk that Danny was talking about, maybe giving up a second round pick for a guy with a big contract who could really make an impact right now, I think that still needs to be DeAndre Hopkins. But it smells good. It smells good. I just got downstairs. It smells good in the oven. I'm excited, but it's not there yet. It still needs a little bit of a touch on it, and that little touch is DeAndre Hopkins.
See, to me, I don't want to ruin your answer or take your answer, but it smells like when you have the ingredients out. So it almost kind of smells like flour. You know what I mean? Like the baking process of everything. Like maybe the apron's a little bit dirty. You're having to wash your hands every so often because you're touching this, that, the other. Let's see. Joey Stewart says it smells fresh. Okay, it's an interesting answer. Watsamata says my answer in the comments above is this smells like swagger. Brian says smells like progress. Matthew lets me know how to spell potpourri. Did anybody know how to spell potpourri? Am I on an island there? Did you
Not
guys know
a chance.
Howman, you nodded. Yeah, I mean, I would have never guessed it was 2 words, by the way. I would have thought it was a single word. Tony, Jess thought your answer was hilarious. You said it smells like Five Below cologne. So would you like to expand on that answer?
Yeah, I mean, usually when it's this time of the year, the Cowboys are shopping at Dollar Tree, and for this point in time, they've stepped up their game a little bit. They're going to Five Below. They're not going to go crazy, but they got a little bit more money this time around. They got a little more ambition, so they're going to go spend and splurge on, $4 or $5 things instead of $1 things. And that $5 cologne may smell a little better than the Dollar Tree cologne. So I'm not upset about it. This is encouraging. Maybe next year, or maybe later on, we can get the Macy's, maybe we get the TJ Maxx, who knows, but right now it's $5 below.
Wow, Tony, you're one step above taking the sample from the magazine and rubbing it on yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's I guess that was last year. That was last offseason. That's what what the Cowboys have done before.
We're moving on up.
Charles says it smells like Teen Spirit. That's an awesome answer, by the way. Kevin, kind of to your point, Chris says it smells like bread in the oven. Smells good, just don't burn it. Alex, Chris gave you 5 points for the DeAndre Hopkins point. So let's see here. Danny, you said the smell of success. I don't know what that smells like specifically, but maybe like a briefcase. You know what I mean? Like when you buy a briefcase and you open it, you smell like the leather. It's got that weird patch of the like stuff that nobody knows what it is or what purpose it serves. Is that a fair description?
You know what? That sounds fine, RJ. You just pick whatever you want to describe success. But to me, I know I said this before, but I just feel like it's business as usual. But I just think that the Cowboys, if you look at the things that they were really good at last year, I think having that depth and they didn't get themselves in too bad of a hole with the exception of cornerback, which they did get some. 2 of their starters went down. But I feel like they're basically just replenishing their roster. They have this extra depth. They're equipped to once again make a run. Now remember, we were sitting here last year and there wasn't a lot of things going on that made us excited. But and we were down, but the Cowboys, they were competitive. And to me, it just feels like they're at it again. So yeah, bring in your briefcase, do your business, fill the holes, and they're gonna where the real success is gonna come is the draft. But to me, I just feel like the Cowboys front office, and I know I get a lot of heat for this, I just think that they're doing a really solid job of taking well calculated risk with their budget, and I just think this is a great move. So to me, there's no reason to think that this Cowboys team is not going to be, a strong continued team next season. So.
Okay. LP, you went with funky. I don't think that was your first answer, LP. Did you change it? And if I misread. So it's funky implies bad. I don't know. Like, are you kind of nervous? Do you not? You're muted once again, LP. You're really struggling for this third tile in a row here.
Look, all right. So I started with offensive, but then I was like, well, maybe it's funky.
Change it. So you lied. Not only did you mute yourself, you lied. Okay.
I swapped it up. I mean, but you know what? It smells funky in a way where this team is like kind of tipping their hand a little bit. Like, I think now, based on the moves, like we heard about them talking to their defensive players, like we're trying to get Donovan Wilson back. We want to get LVE back. And they're very vocal about getting those guys back. I didn't hear the same overtures for retaining a Noah Brown or retaining these offensive free agents. And I just feel like with these guys, they really want to make a move and they're tipping their hand heavily towards offense. And I'm all for it. I feel like we need to go offensive in the draft. Very heavy, like handed when it comes to offense. So whether it be like your first couple picks in the draft, running back, receiver, maybe offensive line. I said it on Twitter earlier. O-line might be the pick that people don't want to see them do in the first round, but it makes a lot of sense. It's a sensible move. So I feel like they've tipped their hand to the offense, and I'm okay with that. Like, we need to have a committed process to offense. And it smells funky like they're going that way. If it's D-Hop, by all means, make the D-Hop move, or whatever it is, make that move. But I feel like they're going in the route of offense, and that's what I really want to see, whether it's the draft pick or draft picks offered for offense. It smells funky, man. I think something big might be happening.
I think the position that everybody wants to avoid in the first round is running back. I know Chris Halling is Team Bijan. Seems like you're a bit on an island there, Chris. But hey, that's an argument for a different day. Brandon, did you say it smells like Wawa? You're a Northeast guy. Is that what you're going for? Buc-ee's is better. I think we all know and acknowledge that. But so Wawa is your answer. Like this, I've never been to one. So you're saying like just the establishment, like what it smells like, or like the gas station, or like what part of it, I guess, is your answer?
Yeah, so it's more of like the sandwiches and kind of what they're cooking. I love Tony's answer.
I'm sorry. Can you explain what a Wawa is for the people who don't know?
Yeah, so it's almost like a I don't know, like there's gas stations and it's almost like a convenience store, but they also do sandwiches, really good stuff. I liken it to exactly what Tony's analogy is, where it's not the Dollar Tree. It's not like a Quick Check. It's not like your fast food like a McDonald's, but it's a little bit up. It's a step up from there, which is Five Below. I use the same analogy in an article I wrote this week, so I loved what Tony had to say. So if he wins, just by all means give it to him. I'm on that. I'm on that team. But I do think that with the Cowboys, when you step into a Wawa, it's quality food for a discounted price. It's not the absolute best. Like the Cowboys, by all means, could be putting a little bit more on the table for trying to get like a DeAndre Hopkins if that's where they want to go. They could have swung for the fences and went for Jalen Ramsey, but you're sort of in that range where, okay, we're not going to handicap ourselves for the foreseeable future. So this is what we're working with right now. So very reminiscent, like I said, of Wawa. And it's where I'm from. So yeah, not the best, but not the worst.
Howman, I went with you last because LP changed his answer. So I thought you might, because you had pie and Chris had pie. So I was trying to buy you some time, but you decided to stick with it. So why is pie? Make pie a better answer than Chris, I guess, is the challenge if you want to win.
Well, when you got a good answer, you can't go away from it. So I stuck to my guns, and Chris did kind of he jumped the gun for me with doing pie, but I'm going with pie that's already out of the oven because I think it just has a little bit better of a smell. It's already been baked, and you know what you're getting, and there's pie there. And you look at it and you say, okay, yeah, like we could make it better. We could get some ice cream, put some whipped cream on top. You can add some other things to the pie to make it a little bit better. But at the same time, if you don't, it's still pie. It's still pretty darn good. I mean, this Cowboys team coming off consecutive 12-win seasons, they're a good team. And, you're talking about, bringing back some of the playmakers on defense with Vander, Esch, and Wilson. Like they're keeping that core intact. They're keeping a lot of these players. They're talking about an extension for CeeDee Lamb. They're really trying to take what they have, which is already good, and just elevate it a little bit more because that's kind of where they're at as a team. They just need to get a little bit further. And, I was just thinking it's Pie Day. I'm thinking about the pie I had earlier today for Pie Day. And the whole thing just made sense because with Stephon Gilmore, you're just getting a little bit extra. Maybe they'll get a little bit more too, but even if they don't, it's still a good combo.
Watsamata ties a great bow on this in the comment section, says just make sure it's not the Dollar Tree pie, spend at least $5 on that pie. That's the advice from Tony Catalina, as we all know. We have one final topic to get into before we crown a winner, but before we do, I wanted to read you all a tweet that I just saw from ESPN's Field Yates. It says the Bills have restructured the contract of wide receiver Stefon Diggs, converting base salary into a bonus and creating another $5.4 million in salary cap space. I don't think any of us in our realistic minds thought that the Cowboys were going to be trading for Stefon Diggs this offseason, but I think this ensures that it is not going to be happening, Danny Phantom. The Cowboys may very well wind up trading for a receiver, but it probably will not be Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, absolutely. With that move, you can see that there would just be more dead money that
right.
Buffalo would take on. So yeah, and yeah, I also agree with. I'd never even thought of that as a possibility too. So,
Brandon.
Well, with now Stefon Gilmore on the roster and Trayvon Diggs, if you take the two of them and add them up, you do get Stefon Diggs. So
that's true. And Stefon is spelled no, that's spelled the same. Stefon Diggs is very unique with the F. Like that's such a unique move that I respect. But so close enough. Cowboys are like, hey, you asked for Stefon, we did it. And former Bill, by the way, Stephon Gilmore is so kind of close in that sense. All right. Anybody have anything else before our final topic? Now is the time. You are all tied at 25 points apiece, by the way, as we enter the final round.
I just wanted to say real quick, since you're talking about former Bill, I just tweeted this before the show, but Jerry Jones made a move to draft Claiborne back in 2012 because he wanted the best corner in the 2012 draft, and it's taken him this long, but he's gotten the best corner in the 2012 draft in Gilmore. So if at first you don't succeed,
that move, the 2012 moves were hated on too much. Like the Mo Claiborne thing didn't work out, but he was not a bad player. Brandon Carr was not a bad player. Like people really the Cowboys overreacted. Is that really a Mo Claiborne jersey, Howman?
It sure is, and I'm specifically wearing it because Stephon Gilmore was taken 4 picks later.
I have one in my closet as well, so yeah, I have a Claiborne jersey too.
I had a Navy one as well. I don't know if yours was Navy, Tony. And I met him at the Super Bowl when he was there with the Chiefs, and I told him he was the sweetest guy. Oh, that interview is up here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. If somebody wants to go back and watch it, but he was a real sweetheart. Brandon, did you raise your hand one more time, or is that?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that when we were talking about like things being a little bit different, I think when you're seeing this sort of all-in push on defense, I think this really does signal for me when it looks forward to the draft that I think it's going to be similar to 2021, but in the reverse, where you have a lot of offensive guys taken and maybe one defensive guy taken. And that might not be the case depending on where they kind of go with free agency, but it's kind of shaping up that way. When you look at the defense and everybody was kind of tweeting out where it stands right now, I know John Machota did it, and it's like you look top to bottom, you might not need another free agent to come in. And I know maybe defensive tackle, you bring back Jonathan Hankins, but outside of that, like, you're pretty much set on the defense. So you really need to kind of make sure you shore up the offense like we've talked about. And I think that you also think maybe it's a last hurrah if they do keep Zeke on the roster, Tyron for one more year. Like, this really is, it does feel like a kind of final moment for the Cowboys and where they're at right now.
If they start tweeting out some Last Dance stuff, like we've overdone the Last Dance memes, we don't need it anymore. It was a great documentary. We can leave it at that. I agree with you. The 2021 draft felt like the Dan Quinn draft. Maybe we get the Mike McCarthy draft, for lack of a better way to put it. Now, I mentioned you were all tied, but Kevin gave Danny 5 points here. So Danny, you take a 5-point lead into the final round. So in order for the final round to make full and total sense, we have to put what the Cowboys have done so far on the screen. The podcast audience cannot see it. This is what the Cowboys have done. Now, the new league year technically begins tomorrow on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, but these are all things that are basically official for the Cowboys. They have brought back Tony Pollard by way of the franchise tag. They have placed a second-round tender on Terrence Steele. It would be pretty impossible for him to leave. Donovan Wilson is back. Leighton Vander Esch is back. They have traded for Stephon Gilmore. We've talked about that a lot. They have lost 3 players. Connor McGovern heading to the Buffalo Bills, who the Cowboys will visit this season, by the way. Luke Gifford of the Tennessee Titans. Noah Brown, we touched on it, heading to the Houston Texans. So that being said, it is now time. Whoa, I don't know what happened to our screen. Give me a second to fix this. That freaked me out. Okay, we're good. I've lost myself. I'm good. Grade how you feel about the offseason so far on a scale of 1 to 10. That distinction is important. How you yourself feel. Now, to be clear, 10 is the best. 1 is the worst. So 1 is I'm pissed, I'm angry, I hate life. 10 is sunshine, roses, smells like Teen Spirit, I suppose, or pies, or success, leather briefcases, whatever. So this is how you feel, not how you are assessing the Cowboys, how successful you would say it has been for them. Your personal opinion. And again, we will talk about what people in the comment section have to say as well. Is everybody ready? Is everybody locked in with their answers? I feel like Julie Chen, like on Julie Chen Moonves on Big Brother, like, and I get to say, like, okay, lock in your answers. I've never really gotten to be in this position before. All right, 1, 2, 3, let's go. Also numbers. Brandon says 7, Chris says 8, Tony says 6, Danny says at the end of the day, ... 10. Howman says 8, and LP says 8. So we have 3 8s, a 7, and a 6. We will go in ascending order, which means, Tony, you are first because you are at a 6. You're the most pessimistic. Chicken Little's back.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm probably going to have a different take than some people in this. I wanted to find a way to see if we can make Connor McGovern work. I understand that the money wasn't going to be that situation, so I'm okay with them not making that move based on that money, but I still think that there's a question mark on the left side, whether it's Tyler Smith or Tyron Smith or whatever they do there. So I'm to be honest with you, I was pretty sure that they were going to bring Leighton Vander Esch and Donovan Wilson back. I had a feeling that those are pieces that they were going to make. So what kind of gets me off the median line there at 5 is the Stephon Gilmore move. That brings a little bit of encouragement to me to that 6 level. If they find a way to add a wide receiver, I mean, if it's a middle move, that's a 6, or I mean, it ends up being like, if it's a middle move like OBJ, then I'm totally fine with that. Or if it's they try to be aggressive and get DeAndre Hopkins, like, I'm cool with that as well. So that would bring me up to like a 7 or an 8. But it's early, and usually we don't get to have this conversation on day 2 of free agency and legal tampering. So that's encouraging, but it'll be a little higher if I continue to see progress.
I got to say, Tony, you're normally celebrated in the comments, but most people disagree with you. So
Brad Johnson.
I don't think he's watching. But wow, a 6. So some high standards you have set for the Cowboys. Brandon, you're in next at 7. Not quite as pessimistic as Tony, but clearly some room for improvement.
Yeah, I want to leave a little bit more of a ceiling so that if they do make a big splash, I can go up. But I think where it stands right now, they brought back Tony Pollard. That's something I wanted them to do. So that's a check. Leighton Vander Esch, you didn't have any linebackers outside of him that were proven veterans. So bringing him back immediately fills a need that they needed to kind of solve in free agency. So that's a check. Donovan Wilson is the guy all along I wanted to be a priority for this team to bring back, and they did that. And when you look at the value of these deals, it's hard to argue that it wasn't going all in on the players and where they felt their market was. Like, this is a very team-friendly contract. You look at across the league and where linebacker contracts are being thrown out, like a Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, like these guys who were getting paid a little bit more than a Leighton Vander Esch. David Long got a very similar deal, I think identical to what Leighton got at 2 years, $11 million. So it's, again, low cost, high reward, and there's still room left to grow. And I think that if you add a defensive tackle, that for me is the biggest need, where they need to find something, whether that's in a high draft pick, maybe second round, third round. But I also think bringing back a Jonathan Hankins, you have him and then immediately elevates the play of Leighton Vander Esch. That will take my 7 and make it a 8, a 9. And then you need that one final piece to make it a 10. And I think that that's on the offensive side of the ball, wide receiver or a tight end in this draft class. First round, I'm all in on that too.
Okay, so we have 3 of you at 8. So since we can't go in ascending order there, we'll go in alphabetical order with your first names. That means, Chris, you are up first. You were really down on the Cowboys as the week began. Obviously, the Jalen Ramsey trade happened. You were really upset that they were not in on that. So is the Stefon Gilmore thing what breathed new life into you to put you at 8?
Yeah, that and the fact that we brought back Wilson and Leighton Vander Esch. The reason it's an 8 is actually because I think there's still moves that need to be made. I really agree with Brandon that Jonathan Hankins needs to come back, but also they really need to go all in on a wide receiver. And I think the answer is DeAndre Hopkins. But if you don't, I'm still not opposed to Odell, and I'm not opposed to picking a wide receiver in the first round as well. And also, I think no one's really talking about this because he's a fan favorite, but there's no excuse for Ezekiel Elliott still being on the roster right now. And I know that a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's
JT agrees
money
with you
that doesn't
in the super chats, by the way.
I mean, like, that's money that doesn't need to be spent at that position. I think Ezekiel Elliott at this point, I mean, I think really anything above $2-3 million a year is not needed, and I think it opens the hole more for Tony Pollard to get more reps and for him to develop even more and more, and it frees up a more cap space for us. So, and also I think it's a disservice to him too, because I think it would be better if you had released him a little bit earlier and given him more options and, like having more time to see what team he would be a good fit on. So I don't know. I think that those moves need to be made. And I also think that there's still some more free agents that the Cowboys can bring in to help their team.
Okay. That's well said by Chris Holling. So going in alphabetical order, David Howman, you are next. You never go by David, at least in my book. But Howman, why are you at an 8?
Well, I'm at an 8 just because I think, coming from, consecutive 12-win seasons, I think this team is ultimately headed in the right direction already. I think that, with Dan Quinn and the defense, like, that is in a very good spot, especially after bringing back Vander Esch and Wilson, adding Stephon Gilmore. So the defense, I'm not too terribly worried about. There's still, maybe a couple of players here and there you might want to add just for some depth. I know the Cowboys are working on Dante Fowler, getting him back. And then with the offense, I'm really have been a big believer in the added advantage of Mike McCarthy taking over play calling. Brian Schottenheimer is the offensive coordinator. I think he's got a lot of really interesting ideas that he can bring to the table as well. Obviously, there's still more that I would like to see added on offense. There's some questions about the offensive line, who's playing where, what's the depth look like, and then with pass catchers. But you bring back Tony Pollard, and he was by far your most explosive player, not named CeeDee Lamb last year. So that's a good start, and I think there's a little bit more room for some progress. If you get, like, on defense, if you get a Jonathan Hankins type, doesn't necessarily have to be the man himself, but if you get someone who can do what he does, if you're able to get some upgrades at receiver or at tight end, maybe like a DJ Chark, who I've been really high on in free agency, or maybe even Mike Gesicki in free agency at tight end if his market doesn't really materialize, and then what they do in the draft. I think we're in a good spot right now, just on the second day of free agency, where you could take this from an 8 all the way up to a 14, which of course is the number of the legendary Brad Johnson.
Wow. That was really, really well done. Good luck following that, LP. LP, you sat back in your chair, and somebody asked why you shrunk yourself because you got really small on the camera. So that wasn't me, LP. But you're back now. You're unmuted. We're good to go. Why are you at an 8?
Yeah, man, I'm saying it's a solid 8. So it's good, and the 8 is predicated based on getting Stephon Gilmore. Great value, great cost, good compensation. It's an excellent safeguard for whatever happens in the future. So you protect yourself from starting KJ Wright again, or starting Nashawn Wright, Kelvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright. You protect yourself with that, still with the flexibility again to take a corner in the first round if one falls to you. And again, what does all in on defense look like? I think you're kind of almost like Brandon said earlier, you're kind of maxed out. You've handled most of your business. You've done most of the dirty work. And all-in signing is not going to be one anywhere on the defensive line on the interior that I don't believe anywhere anyway. So I think, the job's not finished. Like Kobe said, like number 8 said, the job's not finished. You have to get a receiver. So it's an 8. It's a solid 8, but you have to find a receiver. I'm receiver round 1. If a guy falls to you, an Addison, take the Addison receiver, but still make a trade for a receiver, maybe a mid-level guy, maybe a Renfro, maybe you pick up a Robbie Anderson, just a speed guy. But I would just say you have to supplement that with speed. And also to piggyback off what Chris said, I don't want Zeke back in any capacity whatsoever. I want him gone. Not for $1 million, not for 11. I want him gone. You have to refresh that room altogether. Take a draft pick. There's so many rich running backs in this class. We're at 8 now. We can go back to a 6 or 5 by insisting upon Ezekiel Elliott when it's not necessary. Just forget all that. Start over again. We're on a good path, but we can always revert back to old habits. So solid 8, but the job's not done. Keep moving forward. Add a receiver. Get rid of Zeke Elliott. And let's go. Let's play.
Wow. I kind of like the threat. Like, I'm not afraid to turn this car around and go back to a 6, Cowboys. So make sure you do what I say. Danny Phantom, you added a bit of a qualifier to yours. You're at a 10, but you said at the end of the day. Explain.
No, I mean, to me, it's just the reason I love this is because it's the Cowboys operating like the Cowboys do to me. And I think one of the things that I find particularly satisfying about this is I feel like it's kind of the changing to a Quinn's team because, and I didn't get to talk when you were asking about this, but I absolutely think this is happening because of Dan Quinn. And if you look at even last year with Kearse returning, Hooker returning, Armstrong returning, players that have developed and turned into the players that we thought they could be, and now we're retaining them. And now we're doing it again, and the Cowboys are with Vander, Esch and Dono. And so to me, and then they could bring in Fowler too. I mean, they're like, the Cowboys were second in DVOA last year. They had a great defense, and it's like, so what? It's almost like they're building their team like they're 5-11 or 5-12 now. But they're beefing up their defense, and they're going to make it so strong to where, guess what? They don't have to rely on Dak Prescott to do everything. And this is what we complained about last year is that, Dak has to do too much. Well, you don't have to now because your defense is going to be every bit as good as it was. Can you imagine, if you get that pass rush going and now you have Diggs and Gilmore, on the corner. So I just think that the Cowboys are doing the right things and they're doing it the Cowboy way. I mean, it's not anything that's just completely turning things upside down. It's just the kind of business they like to do. And that's why I score them high because I've always, praised them for operating in this manner. So absolutely, it's I feel really good about how things are going.
I said myself coming into this week that I was not going to be grading on a curve or a letter or a number, which kind of defeats the question that I just asked. It's a pass-fail proposition for me. Like, do just enough and you can pass my class. Like, easiest class you're going to take in college right here sort of thing. And to your point, Danny, like at the end of the day, you did something. You did something I wanted you to do, so you passed, right? So like if passing is passing, and that's a 10. So like right now I'm kind of in that same boat as you. Brian, you did offer a super chat. Thank you very much. Asking about the June 1st cut. I don't know what your question is specifically. You mentioned tweeting at Howman and how he answers a lot. If you have any questions, like again, what you mean specifically about the June 1st cut, you can let us know on Twitter, and we'll definitely answer those when this is over. Zeke is definitely a candidate to be a June 1st cut. But the short answer is if the Cowboys do designate him a June 1st cut, they can push half of his dead money, 50% of it, into next year's cap situation. So that is something that gives you an advantage this year, but that money is not accessible to you until June 1st, which is why it's called the June 1st cut. So that being said, it's now award time. Now I will warn you, this is the most unique way we've ever gone about handing out a BTB winner or BTB Roundtable winner, which I'm sure is super comforting to you, Tony Catalina. So there are 6 of you here. 3 of you had 32 points tonight, and 3 of you had 33 points. So I had to decipher which ones of you were better and worse and whatever within your own tiers. So we have 2 tiers of winners, and within those tiers, I've decided to give one of you a bronze medal, one of you a silver medal, and one of you a gold medal. So our second place tier, Tony Catalina, you have the bronze medal, so literally last of the whole group, but bronze medal for you, sir. LP, you came in silver on the second tier, so not quite all the way down low. Howman, you took the gold medal on the second tier. Tony, you raised your hand. Did you have a question or a point of concern?
No, I was just giving you a thumbs up. That's all.
Are you sure it was a thumb? Just to be sure. I mean, I guess just based on the results, I'm not certain.
Yeah, Brad Johnson picked these out, so that's fine.
Okay. Howman, do you feel like you won something because you won the gold medal of the second tier?
I mean, I kind of feel like the Bills in the 90s just, getting kind of close. I can say I really won something, but not what I wanted.
LP, you came in as the two-time defending champion. Do you feel disappointed in your game tonight that you are a part of the second tier? Not bronze. Again, taking home silver's a nice shade. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I didn't come on my best, man. You know what I'm saying? I actually thought Howman was top tier tonight, but hey, we all got surprised tonight. But it's all good. I'll be back.
You will be back. That's the great thing about the roundtables. We're here every week, so everybody has a chance to win every week moving forward. So that means that Chris, Brandon, and Danny are in the top tier. Tony, who do you think got the silver medal between the three of them?
Danny.
Howman, who do you think took the gold medal between the three of them?
I actually think it was Danny.
LP. So Danny, you have been suggested for silver and for gold. LP, who do you think won tonight's roundtable?
If I was counting right, I think it was Danny.
Look at that, Danny. Danny Phantom actually came in at bronze in the top tier. So not silver, not gold. Brandon came in at silver. Chris Halling, you took the gold medal on the top tier. The pie thing was a little bit shaky, but you landed the plane basically everywhere else. Congratulations to you, Chris Halling, tonight's roundtable winner. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. I came in with a game plan and I executed it. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Brandon, silver medalist here, the real silver medalist, not second tier stuff. No
yeah,
offense
exactly.
to LP, Howman, or Tony here, but so how are you feeling knowing you came so close but didn't take it home?
I love it. I've talked about how I'm a triplet. I'm in the middle child, so I've been in the middle my entire life, so I'm used to it. Totally fine. And 33 with the point count, that's my favorite number. So I am like living large right now. It's gonna be a good week, so I'm happy.
On the Zeke note, I always wanted Zeke to wear 33. He's never felt like a 21 to me. I don't know if I'm alone on that, but 33 would have been really cool. Kind of see Tony Dorsett reincarnated. Danny, Kevin said that you took the gold, and that was a really popular opinion. Bronze, kind of a shade of gold in some way, shape, or form. How do you feel about third place?
I feel pretty good. I'm very proud of Chris. I really thought, I know that he has big dreams and about what he wants with the Cowboys, but I really thought he was very grounded with his answer with Vander, Esch and over Dono. I just thought that was a very smart way to go. Of course, Brandon hit the ground running with the Robert Quinn thing. I honestly think everybody did. I mean, Tony's Cologne's comment and LP, referencing Kobe, you're going to always score points with me. I just think Howman, I like the props to the Claiborne jersey, but he just kind of looks like Mose sitting there in that office. So that always just kind of like, it was hard to take him serious, but no, I think everybody did a fantastic job.
Wow. Yeah, I forgot all about Tony's Cologne comment. That didn't sink you, Tony, for what it's worth. I mean, that was maybe the highlight of your night.
Yeah, should have won me it. I don't know.
I mean, look, not everybody can win. Alex says the fans took the gold. Gilmore was a win for all of Cowboys Nation. Trey has offered some specific answers. Says Brandon gold, Danny silver, Chris bronze in second tier. So thinks all three of you belong in the second tier. My goodness gracious. Wow. These are tough times. The BTB Roundtable streets are an unforgiving place. You take one step out of line, and people will, Oh, Trey also says that Brandon was robbed. So Brandon, how do you feel about that?
I don't, because I still ended up in the first tier, so I wouldn't feel too good if I was second tier, third place.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, all of you made podium. I ensured that. You know what I mean? Like, you all got something. You're all getting in the car and you have to put something down and you feel proud of yourselves. That's better than one winner and 5 losers, right? I mean,
yeah, sure.
Okay, so I think we should end with this in the spirit of the Cowboys and because of the day that it is. Troy says, tell us your favorite pie. It is National Pie Day. We've done this conversation a lot, so we can be kind of straight matter of fact to it. Brandon, your favorite pie? You said apple, right?
Yeah, apple pie.
Okay. Do you do the handheld ones from McDonald's?
No, that's gross.
Okay. Wow. Chris Halling, your favorite pie that is not quite done yet.
I'd probably say apple pie with some ice cream, some whipped cream, some cherry. You know, you got to get the whole thing.
Okay. Tony Catalina.
Straight up, just cherry pie.
Okay. I mean, where are you getting this? Because you're the person who's apparently pretty picky about where you shop.
Yeah, probably not Dollar Tree. I'll tell you that.
Man, this was a rough night for Dollar Tree. In the words of
Sponsor
Tony
us.
Catalina, it's a fine place, Tony. You can get a lot of things you need at Dollar Tree. I mean, geez, wow.
Moving on up, Five Below, baby.
Danny Phantom, your favorite kind of pie?
I like lemon meringue, but you got to get the meringue right.
How do you feel about key lime?
I don't hate it.
Okay, all right. So same family tree in my mind. David Howman, your favorite kind of pie?
My favorite kind of pie is pumpkin, which I know everybody has varying opinions about. But I'll say today there's a homemade pie shop right down the street from where I live, and I went there for Pie Day, and they had a special brisket pie that they were making. So that was pretty special. That's definitely making the podium for my pies.
Okay, and LP Cruz, your favorite kind of pie?
I just got hip to it, but shepherd's pie.
You know what? I was thinking, I was kind of expecting somebody to say like a chicken pot pie or something like that. You went opposite direction, so I at least respect that.
Yeah.
Pizza pie is the answer that we were looking for, and all of you failed. So I stole that from Brandon Gowton, who said it on the NFC's mixtape this week. Tony Catalina, you are last. So I don't make the rules. These are just what they are. So I would like you, Tony, to spell pie in Spanish.
I have no idea, but I can give you Brad Johnson's 08 stats if you want that.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Give us that in a little bit of a beat, or sing a little bit of a song with Brad Johnson's stats for the Cowboys. Rough.
I don't know if I got that for you, but he had 2 TDs and 5 interceptions, and he only threw like 89 passes in his whole career. So shout out to Brad Johnson, man. He's taking a beating like Dollar Tree today.
Wow. So, and somebody on a positive note. Danny, give us a positive line. One line, send us off.
You know what? It's not over yet, so just brace yourself for some more very uninspiring moves by the Dallas Cowboys.
Great positivity, everybody. Have a good week.
It's Tarta, by the way.